Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 26. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhume Sureta Ravaruta Vimarditaya. Klesa Vyayaya Kalaya Sita Krishna Kesa. Yata Karishyati Jananupalakshya Marga. Karmani Chadma Mahimo Panivandanani. Pumehe of the entire world. Suraitara, other than godly persons. Varuta, soldiers. Bimarditaya, distressed by the burden. Klesa, miseries. Vyayaya, okay. Vyayaya, for the matter of diminishing. Kalaya, along with his plenary expansion. Sita Krishna, not only beautiful but also black. Kesaha, with such hairs. Jataha, having appeared. Karishati, would act. Jana, people in general. Anupalaksya, rarely to be seen. Margaha, path. Karmani, activities. Cha, also. Adma Mahima, glories of the Lord Himself. Upanivandanani, in relation to. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. When the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings who have no faith in God, the Lord, just to diminish the distress of the world, descends with His plenary portion. The Lord comes in His original form with beautiful black hair, and just to expand His transcendental glories, He acts extraordinarily. No one can properly estimate how great He is. Purport. This verse is especially describing the appearance of Lord Krishna and His immediate expansion, Lord Balaram. Both Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev are one Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is omnipotent, and He expands Himself in innumerable forms and energies. And the whole unit is known as the One Supreme Brahman. Such extensions of the Lord are divided into two divisions, namely personal and differential. The personal expansions are called the Vishnu Tattvas, and the differential expansions are called the Jiva Tattvas. And in such expansional activity, Lord Baladev is the first personal expansion of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vishnu Purana, as well as in the Mahabharata, both Krishna and Baladev are mentioned as having beautiful black hair. Even in their advanced age, the Lord is called Anupalakshya Margaha, or, in still more technical Vedic terms, Avan Manasa Gochara, one who is never to be seen or realized by the limited sense perception of the people in general. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said by the Lord, Naham Prakasa Narva Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavritaha. In other words, He reserves the right of not being exposed to anyone and everyone. Only the bona fide devotees can know Him by His specific symptoms. And out of many such symptoms, one symptom is mentioned here in this verse, that the Lord is Sita Krishna Kesaha, or one who is observed always with beautiful black hair. Both Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev have such a hair in their heads, and thus, even in advanced age, they appear just like young boys 16 years old. That is the particular symptom of the personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that although he is the oldest personality among all living entities, he always looks like a new youthful boy. That is the characteristic of a spiritual body. The material body is symptomized by birth, death, old age, and diseases. But the spiritual body is conspicuous by the absence of those symptoms. Living entities who reside in the Vaikuntha Lokas in eternal life and bliss have the same type of spiritual body, without being affected by any signs of old age. It is described in the Bhagavatam, Canto 6, that the party of Vishnudutas who came to deliver Ajamil from the clutches of the party of Yamaraj appeared like youthful boys, corroborating the description in this verse. It is ascertained thus that the spiritual bodies in the Vaikuntha Lokas, either of the Lord or of the other inhabitants, are completely distinct from the material bodies of this world. Therefore, when the Lord descends from that world to this world, he descends in his spiritual body of Atma Maya, or internal potency, without any touch of the Bahiranga Maya, or external material energy. The allegation that the impersonal Brahman appears in this material world by accepting a material body is quite absurd. Therefore, the Lord, when he comes here, has not a material body, but a spiritual body. The impersonal Brahmajyoti is only the glaring effulgence of the body of the Lord, and there is no difference in quality between the body of the Lord and the impersonal ray of the Lord, called Brahmajyoti. So there is no difference in quality. Okay. Now the question is why the Lord, who is omnipotent, comes here to diminish the burden created upon the world by the unscrupulous kingly order. Certainly the Lord does not need to come here personally for such purposes, but he actually descends to exhibit his transcendental activities in order to encourage his pure devotees, who want to enjoy life by chanting the glories of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:13-14, it is stated that the Mahatmas the Mahatmas or great devotees of the Lord take pleasure in chanting of the activities of the Lord. All Vedic literatures are meant for turning one's attention towards the Lord and his transcendental activities. Thus, the activities of the Lord in his dealings with worldly people create a subject matter for discussion by his pure devotees. So first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. In other yugas, only very knowledgeable and great sages could sit in the Vyasasan, in the seat of Vyasadeva. But here in Kali Yuga, this is a good side of it, that anyone who has a little bit of sincerity can sit. And even Prabhupada, he facilitated that anyone who is sincerely reading the scriptures or is sincere about Bhakti Yoga can speak to others. The more I read Srila Prabhupada books, the more I realize the importance of reading them. Basically, everything is written there. This is the third time that I'm going through the Bhagavatam, and every time I read, I find something new. So that means that mainly also because we are in Kali Yuga, so we read, but we are, most of the time our mind wanders around. So it's not like the yugas that a guru will give knowledge to his disciple and he will memorize everything and pass it on. So here is like, we need to read, but not only read superficially, but study properly. Prabhupada put a lot of emphasis in the fact that we should not be blind followers, and that bhakti is a science. So he gave us, I was researching, I was like, every time, he gave us so many texts, authorized texts. I'm just going to quote a few. For example, he translated the Bhagavad Gita as it is from Sanskrit, and he didn't, it would be, before I became a devotee, I used to read a lot, and sometimes I would come across to so many books and say, wow, people can take the time to write all these, superficial and unuseful things. It's like no one can do anything with those books, but yet the world is filled with literature that is not useful to anyone. So I think this, and I feel this, and now that. But Prabhupada, so it would have been much easier to just, he, like many people did, he takes the Gita and he writes whatever he thinks, I think this is that and this is that. But he went through the trouble of researching all the previous gurus and acharyas in the line of bhakti, and every single thing he wrote, besides translating the Bhagavatam, but he always had all these scriptures to back him up. He was not inventing anything. He was presenting the philosophy like the previous acharyas in the line of bhakti did. And so he took all that time and energy to write and translate and write commentaries and translate from Sanskrit word by word. Not only him, but also the disciples who helped him. Every time I read it, it's just very impressive, the amount of literature and philosophy that is presented in these books and the amount of books. And every single question and answer, philosophical question and answer, is right there. So for example, he wrote the Bhagavad Gita, he wrote he translated 18 volumes of the Bhagavatam with 18,000 Sanskrit verses, the Chaitanya Charitamrita 9 volumes, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the Nectar of Devotion, the Nectar of Instruction, the Sri Upanishad, the Light of the Bhagavata, so many books. The list is really, really long. So what I'm trying to say is that we should not imitate the preaching style of Srila Prabhupada. For example, he had so much philosophy and so much purity that he could say sometimes to people, oh yeah, when people will ask a question about yoga or philosophy or impersonal philosophy, he could say, oh, they are rascals, or they are fools, and etc. But he had so many Vedic texts to back him up, and he has so much purity. For example, the other day I was looking at a video that an interview between in Melbourne, actually, when Prabhupada came to Melbourne, and there was a journalist, and so Prabhupada was talking about many philosophical ideas, etc. And the journalist, at the end of all that interesting talk, to just say why the guru is giving so much, importance, and why you get presents, and why you're giving, so much, credit and everything was you. And then Prabhupada said to her, actually, because you're envious, I sat on the floor. I was meant to sit in a high seat, but because you're envious. And the journalist just laughed. But if we go to say that to someone, they will not take it on the same way. So we have all this philosophy. In the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, we can find everything. Impersonal philosophy, all types of 6 philosophical schools authorized by the Vedas. We find why bhakti is higher and more effective than other paths. We find everything. So that's why Prabhupada actually, he emphasized a lot, read. And don't be a blind follower. Because if you're a blind follower, you say, oh yeah, someone asked, for example, from the yoga village, why bhakti is better. And because, whoever doesn't practice bhakti is just inferior. That's not a valid argument. And we have everything here to explain people why Bhakti in Kali Yuga is the path, why is the Yuga Dharma, why Kirtan or Mahamantra is the Yuga Dharma. Everything is written here. So I just want to emphasize that it's very, very important to read Prabhupada's books, because even we owe that to him. He took all that effort and work to research and to write, and all his disciples who helped him. And now we're here and just, we sometimes follow mechanically, we go to the program, we don't know why. Like sometimes, for example, every single morning we sing Govinda Madhi Purusham, we come here, we feel like, yeah, it's beautiful, but sometimes we don't really know what we're singing or why we're singing that. So I think it's important, that's why we have so many texts and so many explanations, like what is the Brahma Samhita, what is the Brahma Samhita stating? The Brahma Samhita is stating that Krishna is the Swayam Bhagavan, is the original personality of God, and all the avatars come from him and everything else. So that's, why in the morning we go to Mangalartik and we meditate on the spiritual master. Why again in Guru Puja we sing prayers to the spiritual master. Why the Guru is giving such a prominent position within Bhakti. So we have all the answers here. So that was one thing that I would like to say. And also I would like to mention how when Prabhupada said no blind following, we have so many examples in the scriptures. For example, I was reading the story this morning about Ajamil. No, not exactly about Ajamil. In the 6th canto, in the 1st chapter, Maharaj Parikshit, because this is at the end of the 5th canto, Maharaj Parikshit, so Sukadeva Goswami in the 5th canto explains all the planetary systems. All the Vedic cosmology is explained in the 5th canto. And towards the end of the 5th canto, he explains the lower planetary systems, Vilashvarga, which are heavenly, and then below Vilashvarga is the hellish planetary systems, which are the places where the living entities have to go to atone for sins. Sometimes sins, we connect sins with a religious Christian thing, like a very guilt-filled. But in reality, what if sin is a negative karmic action. So when we do actions that they're not beneficial for us or for people around us, that is sin. Sin means a karmic action, an action that is going to create bad reaction for you and for the other people around. So we can observe that actually suffering sometimes is a big guru, Even the law in society is based around, implementing a type of suffering. Like, for example, people steal, so they go to jail and they suffer in reclusion or secluded. They can't go outside, they have no freedom. So even the law in the material world is based around. So, for example, if we know that doing certain things is going to cause us suffering, then we may, in the future, we may restrain from such actions that they are detrimental to us and to others. So an example of this non-blind following is given here in the 6th canto, in which Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami, so you mentioned all the hellish planets in which living entities had to go if they perform bad actions, but how can the living entities avoid that? And Sukadeva Goswami's answers, he said, oh well, they have to atone before dying. They have to, for example, let's say you kill someone, so if you don't pay for that karma with atonement before you die, then the suffering will be much heavier, according to the 6th canto. So he said that you have to do pious activities to atone, to get rid of this sinful action. But then Maharaj Parikshit, instead of saying, okay, thank you, yeah, you're the guru and I agree with you, he gives a very valid argument, and he says, well, I can see in the world that people who do pious activities to atone for their sins, they again commit sin. So I consider that useless. That's the word that he says in the 6th canto. I consider atonement or pious activities actually useless for getting rid of bad karma, of sinful activities. So then, Sukadeva Goswami, instead of saying, "Oh, how dare you, to not blindly believe or to not believe what I'm saying. I'm the guru, you're just a disciple." No, he says, yes, in reality it's true. In reality, pious activities performed to counteract sin or bad karma, they are fruitive in itself. So it would bring the person, again, it's like you put a seed and then you cut the weed, and then if the seed is there, the weed will return. So that's what Sukadeva Goswami was saying to Maharaj Parikshit. He was saying, yes, and actually he introduces bhakti there. He says the only way of getting rid of the root of sinful activities and bad karma is by performing activities such as bhakti yoga. Because bhakti yoga has the power to burn from the roots all bad karmic activities. So I just wanted to give that example that, we should be very respectful, but at the same time, not blind followers. If we don't understand something, then we should, even Krishna says to Arjuna, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprakshena sivaya upadeshanti te jnanina tadvadarshana. So you inquire and the Guru gives you a knowledge. It's not like you have a doubt, you inquire to the Guru and the Guru says, shut up. Just, or he gives you an answer and you're not satisfying, you humbly request, I'm not really satisfied. Shut up. I'm the Guru. No, that's not the way it works. You need knowledge, a lot of knowledge. And as far as possible, quoting, we have Bhagavad Purana, we have the Bhagavad Gita, we have the Mahabharata, we have the Sri Upanishad, we have Nectar of Instruction. It's all filled with knowledge. And it's not speculative. Prabhupada translated everything in relation to the Goswamis, to the previous Acharyas, to Lord Chaitanya, etc. So yeah, that's one point that because it's one reason why I actually felt encouraged to become Hare Krishna, when I saw that actually no one was asking you to follow, to believe anything blindly. They were explaining the scriptures to you, and the fact that Prabhupada said it's a science, it keeps repeating that. So why is it a science? I just want to explain a little bit that. A science, like for example outside, people call it a science when you have a text and you have an experimentation laboratory. So that's sadhana bhakti is the experimentation part. You have the text and you have the experimentation. No one is asking you, oh no, believe that the Maha Mantra is going to help you. No, you have the Maha Mantra to experience. Actually, yes, I feel calm, I feel concentrated, I feel happier, things affect me less. So that's why it's a science. So basically, in simple words, a science is when you have a theory and you have the opportunity to experience that theory. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. And then, in the verse it's talking about how so when the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings who have no faith in God. So I just wanted to talk about a little bit about this concept of God. There is taste and atheist, right? Sometimes people who claim to believe in God, they are even worse than those who don't believe in God. Why I'm saying that? Because actually, if you truly believe in the existence of a superior intelligence, a personality, and we can go on describing the qualities of God, He's beautiful, He's omnipotent, He's omnipresent, He's all good, He's all compassionate, so many things. How would you go about, when in reality, if you read the Bhagavatam, he constantly, when he talks to Uddhava, he talks constantly about no harming others, all these regulations, strict regulations. And then you go and you say, no, I believe in God, I'm a firm believer in God. And then you go around killing others, for example. Krishna says to Uddhava, he says, you should respect all the scriptures, even if they are in different modes. Like, there are different scriptures in different modes of goodness. Like, for example, Sattvic scriptures, Tamasic, Rajasic, etc. So he doesn't say just burn them and just impose your religion onto people. No, he doesn't say that, or impose Vaishnava philosophy onto people, just destroy them. No, he said respect other scriptures, but concentrate on yours. So you should not, put down or offend others. So that's so important. And sometimes people say, oh yeah, I believe in God. For example, why Buddha came? Buddha came because people were claiming, oh yeah, we believe in the Vedas, we believe in God, but we kill millions of animals, So there was something going on like that with the killing of animals with the support of the Vedas. Why? Because in the Vedas so many things are described. Everything is there. So architecture, or people who cannot give up meat, people who cannot give up alcohol, so there is advice for every single type of living entity. So for that reason, people can manipulate, and in fact, so many times we see that even in our society. You can take, some philosophy and back it up to be, a little bit chauvinistic sometimes. I'm not, sorry about the word, but that's the reality, You can say, oh no, but, women are inferior and this and that, so therefore, So the scriptures is like law, Law, a good lawyer will take anything in the law to just back up his defense towards a person, even if the person is a criminal. So in the same way, sometimes scriptures can be misused, right? So that's we have many examples. For example, in Christianity, it was a time in which Christians will kill anyone who wasn't a Christian, or they will burn someone, a lady who will have a little bit of intuition, or you are a witch, you go to hell, and we're going to burn you. So that's one example. Another example is the Muslims. For example, the extreme Islam. If you read the Quran, I've spoken to many sincere Muslims, and there is nowhere said that you have to kill all those who do not believe in Muhammad, But yet the extremists, the fanatics, sometimes go and kill others just because they don't belong to their faith. So from my understanding, that is even worse than those people who say, I do not believe in God, but I'm a philanthropist and I help people. I'm compassionate, I help people, although I don't. So it's very understandable actually why people in Kali Yuga, so many people, they say, no, I don't want to know anything about God. Because they connect the concept of God with all the bad activities that they have been done in the name of religion. So that's important actually to understand that actually it's not enough to say, oh yeah, I believe in God. And then, for example, we have the 3 types of devotees connected to this level of, devotion to God. And the Kanistha Adhikari is the one who thinks, oh yeah, God, and he's very respectful and everything, but then it comes out of the temple and he does anything because he doesn't see God in the heart of people. He doesn't see people as being part of God. So that's the lowest, the most basic type of devotion or of Vaishnava. And we should strive to come up of that level and go up and go to the Madhyama level, for example, in which they understand that God is in the temple, they understand that God as Antaryami is in the heart of every living entity, and they respect everything as the energies of God, and they know they have the psychology of presenting the science of God to different type of people. They don't impose things, but they know how to, some people are innocent, some people do not believe in God, some people are demoniac, or whatever you want to call them, they're very negative. So he knows how to act like that, but he respects everyone, not just, people who have very high status, etc. Another thing that I would like to say at the end is So how bhakti, we spoke about that before, but I just want to say quickly how bhakti is, again, a scientific process, and you go through different stages. So you start by having shraddha, or faith. So a person comes, maybe, like we all got into the Krishna consciousness through that stage, faith. For example, me, I was looking for yoga, meditation, etc. in an island, in hippie island in Spain, in Ibiza. And my concept of yoga and meditation was not the Hare Krishnas, So I was there, and then I saw the Hare Krishnas singing, and then they gave me a BTG, and they told me, yeah, we practice yoga, bhakti yoga, and I said, that's not yoga. But then the Maha Mantra really stayed there, because we have that concept of yoga as something very mysterious, so sometimes Bhakti Yoga, it looks a little bit like a joke, not really a joke, but it looks a little bit superficial because a lot of eating, a lot of singing and jumping and this and that, but actually it's deep, serious practice undercover. Because at the beginning you think, these people, and sometimes even I've seen devotees going on Harinam with, like a hat and different attractive, it looks a little bit like circus or something. And people, they laugh with the devotees and they joke about it and everything. And they think, what are these people, what do they do? But then you come to the temple and you understand, wow, they wake up at this time, they go to bed at this time, they strictly follow these rules and that. They read a lot. At least, even if we don't personally read, but we have scriptures every single day. There is nowhere in the world, or no community, or no organization in which this is happening. For example, when I was in my late 20s, I went to Shivananda to do my teacher training, and by coincidence there were 2 or 3 Gurukulis, like in their early 20s there, by coincidence. So in Shivananda they were all the time talking about yoga and this and that, and they were amazed at the amount of knowledge that those people and I will have, when in reality we didn't have that much, but compared to them we had a lot. Why? Because every single day you have these scriptures. And even I remember when I was new, when I was really young and everything, I would sit in the Bhagavatam class, and I would, now I listen much more and I read much more, but I was always remember thinking of something else, But even if you're thinking of something else, that samskar will stay there. Even if you think you're not listening, but if you see it in the Bhagavatam class, the knowledge will go into your subconscious mind. That's what Patanjali says, I'm just quoting Patanjali because sometimes people think, well, the Patanjali Sutras are impersonal, but actually I was reading how Patanjali, he was a Vaishnava actually. He spoke a little bit about God, but not too much, because he knew that the people of these times were atheistic. So, and they were after Buddha, so he couldn't talk too much about God, but actually he was a Vaishnava from the Sri Sampradaya. So he emphasizes a lot how every single thing we do is a samskar and will fructify. Every thought, everything. Like, for example, you look at something and you think, oh, that's nothing. No, that will create.
What do you mean another benediction? Well, he's been giving out those benedictions all over the place.
So everything will create a reaction if we do, these type of activities. Even if we think, oh, I'm there, I'm thinking of something else, it will fructify. That's why it's so important to expose children from childhood. Like, for example, Radha is an example. Since she was a child, she was totally exposed to all this Vedic knowledge, Sanskrit, all this, a lot of piety there, although maybe in ISKCON sometimes they make mistakes, that's the material world. Even Sukadeva Goswami, he says, I'm not perfect. He said, in this material world, nobody's perfect. When Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami about the Vedic cosmology, he answers, well, I'm going to try to give you my answer from what I know, from the previous, sages, but no one in this material world is perfect. So he's putting himself as imperfect. So that means that, and even Krishna, I think he says in the Bhagavad Gita that everything, every action in this material world is touched by a little bit of imperfection. So in an organization like ISKCON, it's just so unique, the environment that Prabhupada created. There is nothing else in the world. You have every single morning, instead of people they wake up, they go to the coffee shop, they start looking at their screens, or they start looking at, the news, or they have no established sadhana. Here we have something that Prabhupada created, and everything, the regulations, the sadhana, everything is there to just elevate our consciousness. So, but in a place like that, even with all his purity and knowledge and everything, we still are dealing with humans. We are not siddhas or perfect, So we're going to make mistakes, but we should go beyond the mistakes and see, put in the scale the good things and the bad things, and the good things go really, really high. So, I was saying that, and then, so Shraddha faith, that's the first step. And then, because we have faith, then we go and associate with devotees, sadhu sangha. So Shraddha, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya. We perform devotional service. Like for example, when we come at the beginning, it's very, very obvious, the whole process, So we have a little bit of faith. Okay, maybe I like the way they sing, or I like the prasadam, or I like, the philosophy a little bit. Let me see. So we come here and then we associate with people who are sadhus. Maybe they're not 100% pure sadhus, but at least the things that they're doing is sadhu activities. Talking about the scriptures, glorifying Krishna, doing kirtan, doing mantra, etc. So this is sadhu activities. Then after sadhu sangha, anartha nivritti. So we decrease the unwanted qualities which are detrimental to our lives, to other people's lives, and to our spiritual progress. After that is nistha, because we get rid of bad qualities, we become more steady, we become more attached. After that when we become more steady in our practice, we get taste. After the taste, which is ruchi. After the taste, we have asakti, or we become detached from the material world and attached to the spiritual activities. After that we have bhav, and after that is prem, which is very similar the process to the yogic process, except that samadhi means totally being absorbed in the antaryami, or Krishna in the heart, the four-armed Krishna. But actually they are different processes and they have very similar goal. So this is a scientific process, and we cannot jump from anarthas to love of God. So we have to understand that we have to go gradually, and that we cannot artificially, pretend that we're feeling something when in reality we are at the level of anarthas. Another thing I would like to say is that to back up, to practice and to go through all these stages, we have the 9 processes of devotional service, which are, anyone can tell me please? Shravana? Yeah? Thank you very much. So we have those processes, which actually sometimes we think, I can just do vandanam and I don't do the others, but in reality they are inherent to one another. For example, if you're listening, you're remembering, and if you remember, you talk about, and then everything is connected. Sometimes we hear that some people are more focused on some, like for example, some people are more focused on praying, or some people are more focusing on talking, like Sukadeva Goswami, for example. But in reality, everything is inherent in each process. Inherent. Is that the way you say it in English? Like, for example, you cannot do Vandanam, or you cannot do Atmanivedanam or Dashyam without remembering or thinking or talking about it, so everything is together, but sometimes you can focus on one single aspect of it. Another thing that I would like to say, because Prabhupada speaks a lot about, in this verse, he mentions the Vishnu Dutas, and the Vishnu Dutta, Ajamil story. And I'm going to finish with this. So basically, yesterday, Suvarna was talking about the karma thing, and how she mentioned the Epicureans, and she mentioned how some people, they ask why bad things happen to good people, why good things happen to bad people. So actually, Prabhupada in the 6th canto, in the 1st chapter, he mentions how, and also Patanjali mentioned the same thing, how karma works, right? So there is the seed karma, which is right there, which you are getting now. By hearing the Bhagavatam, you're getting a seed. There is the fructifying karma, which is about to fructify, but it's not fructifying yet. And there is the one who's already bearing fruit, which is our present karma. That's Prabhupada said in the 1st chapter, and also if you read the sutras of Patanjali, he says exactly the same thing. Sometimes that's why we think, why that person is so bad and this and that, and this, he's enjoying the fruits of the previous karma. So I just want to say quickly about Ajamil, that Ajamil actually sometimes we say, just because he chanted Narayan's name. But if we read the whole story and the description of Prabhupada and Sukadeva Goswami, actually he was a young Brahmana. He was totally trained into the Brahminical culture. He was extremely pious, and he was so pious and so attached to Lord Narayan that he called his son Narayan. So it's not that he is a sinful person completely, and all of a sudden he said Narayan, calling his son, and the Vishnu Dutta come and free him. No, it was a lot of samskar there behind for that samskar of being freed from the Yamadutas could fructify. So I just want to make clear that from my understanding and from what I read in the 6th canto, chapter 1, it's not that Ajamil just chanted out of the blue and then he got liberated from all his negative karmic activities, He did, because it would be unfair. Okay, so I do whatever to everyone, I'm really mean to everyone, I destroy everyone, I destroy society, and then I say, Narayan, okay, that's it. No, it's not as simple as that. He was, since childhood, he was trained in Brahmin culture. He was a Vaishnava, he was a Brahmin. And at a certain point, because of bad association, he became deviated. But still his love for Narayan, sincerity was there, because he called his small son Narayan. So I just want to conclude with this, and if you please have any questions, criticisms, commentaries, comments, please speak up. Krishna Kirtan. Shastra. Shyam. You have something to say? You should. You have a lot of knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge. Yes, you do. Come on, say something. Shyam, you have anything to say in relation to what I?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Shastra Prabhu? Please. Vishnu Jan?
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Can you make a comment?
Yeah, I was just appreciating you.
Oh, that one, okay.
I was just appreciating your example of
Is it on? Yeah.
how Sukadeva Goswami was talking to Maharaj Vriksha about Vrishchita, and you're giving that as an example of mind following. And so, in the sense that Maharaj Parikshit was thinking about what Sukadeva Goswami said, and his realization was that that didn't work, right? And that because the sins weren't removed from the heart. And so I was just thinking about why Sukadeva Maharaj would have discussed that further, presented that, and in relation to compassion. I'm wondering how does sometimes these less absolute points are made, or even if we see people who seem to be following blindly, but perhaps it's more an expression of Krishna's compassion as to where they're at.
Can you explain that one thing?
I'm just wanting to understand why Sukadeva Goswami was discussing that in relation, or I was wondering whether there is an aspect of compassion from, I mean, it's obviously an aspect of compassion from Maharaj Parikshit's perspective because he was wanting to bring the conversation bhakti, but I was wondering about whether Sukadeva Maharaj's presentation is also in relation to compassion, or where people are at when they seem to be following blindly, but well, there's 2 points there. But
Okay,
yeah.
so the first point I read because I thought exactly the same. I said, well, why Sukadeva Goswami says that if he thinks? So Prabhupada explained there, that's why it's so important to read the purpose sometimes, I mean all the time. He said, actually Sukadeva Goswami was testing Maharaj Parikshit, that's what Prabhupada said. And he could see that Maharaj Parikshit, he was intelligent and sincere, so that's why he said in general, because that's what the popular thing, atonement. But then Maharaj Parikshit is not happy with the answer, so he said, yeah, actually it's useless, because in a way it's good, but if you really want to, because Maharaj Parikshit's question was so deep, like he wanted to know how to totally eradicate, not just how to, cut the weeds and then the weeds will grow. Because a person who is actually not spiritually intelligent will go like, okay, I cut the weeds and that's it. But a person who knows a little bit more say, well, but how? Like that's Maharaj Parikshit's question. Okay, you cut the weeds, but again, that same thing that you do fructifies again, because like Maharaj Parikshit said, even atonement activities, pious activities are fruitive. They create reaction, and then again you come to make the same bad act. So that's one thing that I read there. And and then even in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says to Arjuna, the intricacies of action are very difficult to understand. So, but yeah, I thought exactly the same. I thought, why saying that if, you can give the knowledge? But then I guess he went gradual and he saw what Maharaj Parikshit, his level was, and that's what Prabhupada says. That's the only thing I can say. And talking about blind faith, when I was talking about blind faith, I was not talking, there's many types of blind faith. When I'm talking about blind faith, I want people go around killing others just because, they don't even have a philosophical argument to it. They just, if you're not from my religion, you're going to hell. It's like, what is that written, So, and I think when Prabhupada spoke about or criticized yoga philosophy or impersonal philosophy, he wasn't criticizing the philosophy that's authorized within the Vedas or the Bhagavatam or any Purana. He was criticizing the concoction, the speculation of people, because people do speculate. Like, for example, I met people who say, yeah, I can do whatever I want and I'm a yogi. And then, what is that written? Because all the yoga systems of the West are following Patanjali, and Patanjali says yamas and niyamas, brahmacharya, celibacy, truthfulness, cleanliness, no stealing, no this, no drugs, no this and that. And then, no, but I'm a yogi, so that's a concoction. And that's what Prabhupada, from my understanding, was facing when he came to America. He was facing all these people that they were promiscuous, that they were doing anything, taking drugs. Some people say that even taking LSD is good for bhakti, it's just so crazy. So then Prabhupada is like, so where is that written? It's written nowhere. So that's why he put down so much. But then when we read here, it's full of yogic stories, So we see, and Prabhupada talks a lot about Patanjali, so that means it's an auto-right process. It's just that a concoction is like some people say, yeah, I have love for God, and they're sahajas, they don't have any love, the materialistic people. So I think, when I mentioned the blind faith thing, I wasn't talking about, someone who is sincere and, by misinterpreting the scriptures. Thank you so much for the comments. Anyone else? Oh my God, I'm going over. Vasu will kill me. Krishna Kirtan, say something.
It's that we're out of time, man. Everybody's got breakfast.
Like, say something.
I just said.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Haribo.